At the T-minus 3-minute mark, tape recorders on board the spacecraft were turned on. These recorders record both voice and data. We have ignition sequence start. The engine's now building up to 7.7 million pounds of thrust. We have a launch commit and we have a liftoff. Moving back. The Saturn V lifting off with power.
This is WOMMLP operating out of Burlington, Vermont, 105.9 The Radiator. Good evening, it is the Rocket Shop. I'm your host, Tom Proctor, and with me tonight is Nate Gusakov. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening. I should say Nate Gusakov and friends.
Yes.
I can't express how happy I am to see a full outfit in the studio. It has happened rarely in the past year or so it's a really welcome thing to see.
It's official. The restrictions are lifted. COVID has passed in Vermont for the most part, and here we are with a band.
Well, I'm very excited to hear you play. We like kicking it off with the song, so what have you got for us?
It's a new one. I've been working on it for a few years. This is called Going Home. Coffee on. It's an hour yet till dawn. Let's just pretend to sleep. I don't want to lose the night to the burdens of the light. I have a dream to keep. I should be going home eventually. Like a holy little bird, I want you near to me. There's a hollow in my eye. It's a February sky. Please won't you comfort me? Can we be going home eventually? Circles endless in your mind. Is this how it's supposed to be? All the green and all the blue, gone to bombs and gone to fumes. This does not have to be. We'll all be going home eventually.
Gusakov there with Going Home. I love the way that track ended. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Take me through a little bit how that track got created. I mean, especially towards the end, what prompts the switch?
Yeah, great question. I love this song for a lot of reasons. I started writing it probably 4 years ago. It was the dark of winter. It was February, or maybe late January. And as life is in your 30s, everything was hectic, and I carved out like 2 days. Actually went down to my parents' house in the next town over. They were gone, and I just had 2 days to kind of sink down. And finally, it was like 1 a.m. the second night, and I was finally in a place that is so dear to me, which is there's just no distraction. And this song was actually written sort of to my hectic daytime self, from my really protected creative self, saying, like, don't go yet, don't put the coffee on, let's just hang here in this sweetness for a minute. So that's how it began, was this real sort of love song to the very protected creative. And then, as they usually do, it grew from there and changed, and more thoughts and feelings came into it. And as far as that last part, that's pretty much a COVID creation. I think I spent a lot of time with loopers, with a looper pedal, over the year and a bit that we were all cloistered up. And I don't remember if I was already starting to develop that, but I'd been playing it solo with that whole sort of built ending, but just looping upon myself. And so when I got all these guys involved in it, it was like, oh yes, real deal. So it's, I don't know, it was one of those things I was actually just trying to remember the other night. When on earth did I first play that line and think, I'm gonna end this song that way? I don't know. As soon as I did, it was like, okay, I'm going to stick with that.
I love that you mentioned the guys all behind you. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you to introduce everyone in the band here.
Absolutely, gladly. So to my right, to your left on the radio dial, is on the bass here, Mr. Colin Gunn. Everybody, let's do it. Behind me, my younger brother, Will Gusakov, playing the drums, playing percussion. On my left is, by day he's Mr. Jim Carroll, Esquire, and by night we call him Jimmy Pops. Jim Carroll on the guitar. Jimmy! And on the Hammond B3 and the Moog and the Leslie and all sorts of other old things with really cool names, Mr. Ron Rost. And I also, while we're introducing and sort of taking care, I wanted to make sure to mention, just acknowledge that here we are. We're in Burlington. We're by Lake Champlain. We're actually on unceded Abenaki land, Ndakina is what it would have been called, or is called, and Patonbok would be the name of the lake. And just wanted to give mention to that. That's where we stand right now. That's where this music's being created right now. It's important to remember that.
In my other line of work, we tend to start meetings off with land acknowledgements, and that's not something we've done too much here. So I really appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about I don't know if I'll call it the elephant in the room, but certainly the Moog synthesizer in the room. You probably can't see this on the recording if you're watching, but there is a whole contraption to Nate's left, and Nate's the only one with the microphone. So Nate, I'm going to have to ask you if you could just explain the wonderful machine that you have and brought with you tonight to accompany you.
Well, it's his name is Ron Ross. No, that's a good old Hammond B3 organ with, I don't know how many tubes are in there, Ron. 9, at least 9 good old glass tubes, and there's at least 7,213 little wires and switches and knobs, and we had to carry it in the back of a pickup truck and down the stairs and the whole deal. And then there's the Leslie spinner. It's just a Leslie, right? Yeah, it's got a speaker on a carousel, and so it spins around and gives you that good old Hammond sound. And then there's a Moog on top of the keyboard, which is a pre-digital funky effects keyboard. And Ron is a wizard on all of these things.
It's a wonderful contraption. I'm very glad that you explained the spinny thing. I had no idea that's what it did. What a wonderful instrument, and thank you so much for spending all the effort and time bringing it in.
I believe it's a 1979, or that's just the Moog, right?
Moog is a 79. The Hammond is probably like a 64.
The Hammond is a mid-60s vintage, yep.
Wow, yeah, it truly is vintage. So back to the music. So I see here that you've just come out of the new EP, Many Mountains. First EP since 2017. So it's been a minute.
Yeah.
You want to take me through about why now is the time to bring this out and how this differs to the other things that you brought out?
Sure. Yeah. I'll take the second part first because it's very different than anything I've ever done. First, because it's on electric banjo as opposed to acoustic open back. And actually, while I'm thinking of it, that's another thing I wanted to mention. The style of banjo that I'm playing, even though it's electric, I'm playing clawhammer style for some of these, and that is a style that comes directly from the African diaspora. It was brought here with slaves and has trickled its way into American music, as so much from the African diaspora has. So this album, yeah, it's all on electric banjo. It's got this full band plus a couple of backup singers plus a violin as well. I was going to do a full album with sort of half acoustic and half electric, and then COVID came, and we actually we had a recording date, I think, for March 28th or something, 2020, and that went right out the window. And then summer came around, and we all had a chance to play in a barn, practice in a barn where we rehearse a bit, just distanced with masks, and it felt great. And I thought, I'd better just try to capture this. And so I said, hey, can anybody do a recording in the barn? And so a random Tuesday night, we all got together and recorded it, and it came out way, way, way better than I expected. And so I'm trying to share it as much as I can now.
So without that serendipitous recording and it becoming out so fantastically well, was there a chance that you would have remained in the musical wilderness? Or were you planning on, because you had this date set in March of 2020 and it didn't happen, was there always that intention to kind of bring something else out in 2021?
Yeah, that was the intention. It surprised me, like I said, how well it came out, and that kind of put a fire under me to get it out there. But I think it was coming anyhow, and I made a pretty concerted effort as of 2021 to really put more time into music and step back from the day job just a little bit if I can.
Yeah, well, I'm very glad that you did. So yeah, I see, if you already mentioned, the album itself was done very quickly. And how does that differ from your previous work? Is that the way you really like operating? Do you spontaneously kind of grasp it, or do you more kind of think over and mull over these things?
Well, I like that way of recording now because it came out so well. I mean, we had 2 takes for each song, and we were in a barn, so we weren't isolated, so there wasn't there wasn't any overdubbing. It's risky because you get a really wonderful live cohesion, or you get one that you wish you could have done a little better with some more polish. In this case, it was just one of those that came together. There was no doubt as soon as I heard it. And Mark Mulqueen, who did our sound engineering in the barn, did incredible work. And then Ryan Cohen at Robot Dog Studio got a hold of it and just polished it incredibly. So at this point, I don't know, the real work, I think, is in the conceptualizing and arranging, and that's sort of the first half of the work, and then the second half of the work in a band like this is immediately being really flexible about your arrangements if something better comes up, you know.
Yeah, let's kind of to kind of take that a little bit further. Previous work you did with your dad, David, I believe that's his name. Obviously, your young brother behind on the drums. Have you traditionally made a lot of music just with your family? And are you now kind of more open to working with other folks, or is this something that's always been the case, and it just so happens that your brother and your dad come along sometimes?
Yeah, sort of yes, and yes. I didn't originally start playing with my dad. I mean, he's been a professional musician my whole life. That's what he plays with the VSO and lots of bluegrass bands and all manner of things. So I grew up with it around me, but I went for sports and kind of did the whole no way dad thing until I was in my 20s. And then probably mostly through my 20s, I just learned banjo on my own. And then my dad did play on my first album, as did my brother Will. And then after that, my dad and I played as a duo for a while, and that was really cool because we came together somewhat as musical peers. He's way beyond me in chops, but it was neat to come to him as an adult in a way and form a little duo together for a while. And now, yeah, I mean, he's the best drummer nearby, and I want him to play whenever possible. You know, we're not a family band on purpose or anything, but just by the fact that it's fun.
Well, so from what I've heard from other musicians in the area, finding a good drummer is a difficult process.
It can be, yeah.
When you get one, you grab hold of them.
Absolutely, especially one with creativity and sensitivity who really plays the drums like an instrument, which Will does.
Absolutely. This question, there may be more than one answer to it, but what advantages and disadvantages do you find playing with your family? Because creatively and musically you might be different, and family arguments are a thing.
Yeah, great question. Mostly advantage, heavy on the advantage, just in the unspoken communication factor. From within the music, little rhythmic changes, or just an ability to be very productive and functional in rehearsal space. Because there's so much familiarity, I would say, in general, it's been a plus. Yeah.
No, it's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, if we were that dysfunctional, we wouldn't play music together. So.
True, you wouldn't.
And it is a good test. I mean, it's sort of like working with someone. It's a different facet of a relationship for sure. But a little mutual respect, all is well.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'd love to hear another song. So where have you got for us?
All right, this is the title track from that EP. This is called Many Mountains. Many mountains. Oh, many mountains, many mountains. Still remember the smell of that hot sweat. Seems like so long ago. Those days were just as holy as these ones here. Hey baby, don't you know? Oh, many mountains, many mountains. Lord, many mountains, many mountains. I know you well enough that I can see your demons coming, sometimes before you do. And I know you long enough to know that when I see 'em coming. There's not much I can do. Oh, it's worth the climb. Oh, it's worth the climb. I wish I could tell you just what sort of light you have shining from inside you. Oh, it's so good. I wish I could tell you how it feels to always have you by my side. Baby, it's so damn good. Oh, it's worth the climb. Oh, it's worth the climb. Did you see that wild one sail into the woods at the edge of the headlights? We both know this road. And maybe if God is good, we'll still be on it side by side when we're so damn old. Oh, it's worth the climb. Oh, it's worth the climb. Good Lord, it hurts to climb. Oh, it's worth the climb.
All right, Gusakov there, Many Mountains. Oh my God, that guitar solo just sent me. That was just, yeah, sorry. I just want a quick round,
right there, ladies and gentlemen.
quick round of applause for the guitar solo. because
That's what I'm talking about.
That was absolutely incredible. One thing that kept coming to mind there after especially listening to the first song and then listening to that one is you're very much genre defined. There's no definition for genre with this band. We were kind of talking about before about what defines a singer-songwriter, and ultimately nothing. Really, what defines a genre, ultimately nothing as well. You've mentioned that you're a crossover of several different things: Greg Brown, John Hartford, Led Zeppelin, Mark Knopfler.
Ideally. Dire Straits, you know, Mark?
Oh, Dire Straits, yes, sorry, thank you. But yeah, if you could try at least, could you tell me kind of where you get your influences from and what would you define yourself if you gun to your head had to?
If I had to, I would hem and haw for quite a while, which I'll do now. Influences, you know, I mean, absolutely the standard potpourri of American music, which is, again, we're back into the African diaspora for a lot of it, blues and Honey Ledbetter and all those old things, all the Smithsonian folkways stuff. I grew up, as it were, musically playing clawhammer banjo, old-time banjo. So all of that is in there. All of the classic rock of the 60s and 70s is in there. I mean, I was born in 1980, so it's all in there. And I think it's funny, the thing that influences me a lot is actually it's like a slingshot effect from having played acoustic open back banjo for at least a decade, where it's like every single note that I play decays immediately. There's no sustain. It's very hard to be loud. It's very hard to keep good tone. It's sort of pigeonholed. It's like this, folky instrument, which I love. I love playing acoustic banjo, but what you hear now, like what you just heard, is somewhat of my reaction against all that, being like, I can hit this thing, and it just goes, pow, and just playing with that. And it's been really weird, not weird, it's been fascinating that songwriting emotions and writing songs about emotions and on levels that I don't think I quite would have been able to necessarily, just simply because of the noise. Like the power of making this much noise, having the drums, having the bass, it gives my voice a whole different kind of confidence, which is really fun. In terms of influences, all across the board, I mean, probably the ones that you named that I think I put on my website are as good a mix as any, if I had to try to grab it. Where's it coming from?
Based on the answer, it does bring to mind the moment that Bob Dylan switched from folk to electric.
Yeah, right. A little bit of that.
And the ability to really start crossing boundaries and taking new risks.
Yeah.
And in terms of that, the new album's out, but is this giving you a freedom to really try and explore for the next one?
Certainly. And I have no idea exactly where the next one will go. I may do the other half of what I was going to do and kind of do an acoustic, because I've got a lot of songs that are mostly solo acoustic on the banjo, very forest-based, sort of woods-based, land-based music that I love as well. So I might go back there for a bit. I don't know. In the most delightful way. I have no idea yet.
That's a wonderful place to be in.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of crazy, like I said, during the pandemic and really during the lockdown, I spent a lot of time in a small room with a looping pedal. And there's a bunch of stuff that I thought was fascinating, and I have no idea if anybody else is going to think so. So maybe down the road that stuff can come out. Even more just ambient soundscape looping out there, really out there stuff. Boy, does it feel good to explore that.
You're not the first musician to come in here and say that they've experimented with a loop pedal during COVID. It seems to be a bit of a theme.
Yeah, well, what else were we all going to do? Wait, I can loop on myself and have a whole orchestra of myself, and there's nothing else and nobody else around. It's great. Yeah, and I think hopefully, I mean, who knows, there may be more performance with looping pedals, but just the practice aspect of that is huge. It's really valuable.
Did it give you a bigger appreciation for the people around you and the music that they bring to the table?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, both other performers and then also being able to play with these guys. I mean, when we hit the barn for one of the first time, I think it was the first time we played Going Home, I actually just about burst into tears because all of a sudden this song came back at me with rhythm and with bass, and it was just, I was carried along in this thing that until then I'd had to carry all on my shoulders. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I mean, during COVID, we all had these very personal experiences, especially with our own creative arts, wherever they may be, and feeling like you're the only one really listening and growing in it and not really having an opportunity to get that feedback. Obviously, you said you had a bit of an emotional experience playing that first song, but can you kind of expand on that and tell us, like, what was it like kind of first bringing this out to folks that you love and trust, and hearing that play back to you even in a non-kind of performative space and more of a practice space?
It's just so enveloping, and I think that comes somewhat from this being personal music, at least on some level. It's not autobiographical by any means, but there are sparks of emotion that start all these songs. And again, just to hear, it's hard to describe any other than that. It's like I'd been carrying this thing on my shoulder for a long, long time, and all of a sudden I laid it out in like some magic boat. It inflates, and I get in, and then I just get to ride across the water in it. It's like, wow, this song has legs. It's got its own whole, it's really incredible. I also think, I hope that having spent all this time alone in our various little cloisters and with no other feedback, that maybe everyone or a lot of folks will come out with more self-confidence and a little more creative empowerment just because they're used to being the only arbiter of their own coolness, and maybe they're easier on themselves than the rest of the world. So.
I've mentioned this to especially Bob, the producer here, several times, that experiencing this creative explosion that we are already seeing this summer is a fantastic thing, and I just don't want this summer to end, musically speaking, because of the just vast amounts of talent and just I don't know, raw expression that people have been creating in their own rooms that are now unleashing it, and it's really quite something to witness.
I've definitely noticed just physically the act of dancing to live music feels so good. I mean, I always loved it, but now I don't take it for granted.
I went to see the Worm Dogs on Friday.
Cool.
First time I've ever seen them. All my friends love them. It was the first opportunity I could see them play live, and I think it was their second gig since COVID. And Nexus was packed from 7 o'clock. They played for 3 hours, and I've been at many gigs over my life with hundreds of thousands of people, and I can honestly say I've never felt a crowd feel that palpably excited and free and just so pleased to be there. And then the band as well, just bringing all that energy really and laying it out there. It was quite fantastic.
Yeah. And part of me says, yep, we should really mark these, because next summer it probably won't feel quite that fresh and exciting. These are good moments to really revel in, for sure. Yeah. Speaking of the Worm Dogs, they are represented by Astrology Days Records, and my new EP, Many Mountains, was picked up by Astrology Days Records. So there's a good little connection there, and I'm actually going to be performing at a festival with those guys this weekend.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah,
Could you want to tell us a little bit more about the festival?
It's in Pennsylvania. It's called the Grateful Get Down. It's a total jam band in the mountains of PA festival that Cabinet, one of the other Astrology Days records bands, is playing, and they were kind enough to give me a couple of slots to go down there. So I'm going to play 2 half-hour slots solo, and the rest of the time hopefully be barefoot kicking up my heels.
That sounds amazing, and it's surely going to be a great experience, and really glad you're on the same label as the Worm Dogs. That puts you in very good company.
I know. I'm honored.
Well, I think it's about time for another song, so what have you got?
Yeah, I'll give this one a little more of an intro. This is called Song for Lewis, and it's also on the EP. I wrote this after the Pulse nightclub shootings in 2016, and a buddy of mine from Sterling College, Lewis, was down living in Orlando at that time, and he wasn't at the club that night, but he was almost there, and he put a message out the next morning on Facebook basically saying, hey, who's alive? Like, hit me up if you made it through last night. And knowing him a little bit, it brought that whole event closer to me in a small way, and I really felt it for a minute. And this song came out, and it developed as they do, and it's just a song about the simple fact of treating another human being well. I mean, however you want to cut it, all of it comes down to the way we treat one another right here, right now. So this is called Song for Lewis. When there's no shoulder to cry on, and where do you go when there's no ground to lie on? There's a heartbeat, there's a sunrise somewhere. The thing about meaning is it gives us such relief. Thing about hatred, when you flip that beast over, the underbelly's only made of grief. How can I call to you for help? We both love something, we both love something, we both love something. I'm calling to you for help. There's a heartbeat, there's a sunrise somewhere. My grandfather came across that big ocean, so afraid of what he'd left behind. Now so many can't get across that same ocean. No. There's a heartbeat, there's a sunrise, there's a heartbeat, there's a sunrise somewhere.
Sung for Lewis there by Nate Gusakov. I'd love to talk a little bit about your songwriting methods. You said before that your songs aren't necessarily autobiographical, but it seems to me, at least, that they're very deeply personal.
Yeah.
You also mentioned reference to going home. You needed that moment of kind of solitude and silence without the white noise of your day-to-day life kind of in the background. So you talked me through a little bit about how you do kind of create these fantastic tracks and what it is for you to be a songwriter.
Yeah, it's constantly changing. It's only in the last. It's funny, even though I put an album out 10 years ago and I put another one out 4 years ago, it's only in the last few years that I would really feel like I consider myself a musician or a songwriter. For many reasons, I sort of chose place over profession, and so carpentry and such was the thing. For a long time, I only would write songs when the emotion was so huge that I had to do something, or when I was sitting down and just noodling around and something would happen, and I'd never actually sit down and say, I'm going to write a song now, or oh, that thing struck me, I'm going to write a song about it. It's never, I don't think it's ever once been like that. And if I've tried to do that, I don't think it works. So it's usually they start with a musical phrase, almost always. I don't think I've ever started a song with words. And I'll just be noodling around and something will catch my ear or my fingers will do something different and that'll lead me to another progression. Usually when they start, it's funny, I write them for myself as medicine. I think that's the simplest way to put it. Like Song for Lewis, I just sat there and played that melody on the banjo for days after that happened, even before there were really words there. And it's like there's that, it's that really sad, sort of slow, and then there's this part where it's just rocking. It just sort of, and like that's what I needed inside of me, and it feels so remarkably horribly self-involved. But hey, so it is. And that's really where they start, is they are what I want to hear, and they're like the the opposite part of whatever is hurting me, and they fit in and they fill the hole, and the song kind of helps me. And then after that, if I like them, then they go through this crazy process of changing from something that's personal and for me and medicine for me to, okay, crafting it, putting some more words in, maybe some more verses. Usually the theme gets a little more universal at that point. And then filling in the space and seeing how it lives. I wish I had better answers. It's a total mystery to me, honestly. It's like, I hear of people and musicians who are really disciplined and really excellent about, no, I'm going to write 2 songs every day, or I'm going to sit down now and write a body of work about this thing or that thing, and I don't know if I could do that.
You say it's self-involved, but I feel like we all have coping mechanisms for seismic events in our life, and the coping mechanism that you seem to have come out or helps to you is something that we can then all enjoy and kind of empathize and kind of know what you're experiencing, and in a way that then reflects on how we're experiencing.
Yeah, hopefully. It's I talked with my dad about this. He's had this idea for a long time to do a concert in the dark, which I don't know if it'll ever come to fruition, but his reasoning for that was, he's a very sensitive individual, and he feels things really deeply, and especially music. It's a whole world that really envelops. I keep using that word, and what he wanted was to give more of a chance for folks who are listening to be struck as deeply as he was. And I think that's the best outcome of the sharing of the music possible, is for, emotions to be shared, and for other people to, maybe be caught or have a chance to sink down into emotion that's inside themselves, or just to hear it and go, man, that guy's having a hard time. I'm glad my day's not that bad, or whatever it be. But ideally they're universal enough that people can hear something for themselves in there too.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a message that's coming across to me at the very least. I wouldn't say political exactly, but writing a song about the Pulse nightclub shootings, the line acknowledgement you did, which I'm, as I said, very thankful for. Also, see the album that you created, Many Mountains. 10% of the proceeds goes to ACLU, 10% goes to Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Association. Talk to me a little bit about these other initiatives that you're involved in, why they're so close to you, and then why that comes out in your music.
I think anything that I'm involved in or care about comes out in the music, just simply because it's personal songs coming from me. The Backcountry Hunters and Anglers Association is an awesome organization. It's nationwide. It's been growing for a long time. Their mission is, or our mission, I'm a member, is to promote public access to public lands, first and foremost for hunting and recreation, and then also to promote a really high quality, disciplined hunting ethic and conservation land ethic. And so there's nothing there that I don't support. I'm sort of an adult onset hunter, but have loved the mountains deeply for a long, long time. And hunting actually has brought me way into a much closer relationship with all of the life that's around us in the mountains here than I ever thought possible. And so it's something I really want to support. And also, I often see hunters getting a bad name or an easy dismissal as gruff and rednecky or what have you. And that's actually not the case. My little secret delight is that all of these gruff, rednecky guys who would never, ever admit it, what they're doing is going out there and sitting silently through the dawn, day after day after day. There is love for the wild in there. And so that's at the core of it, so I want to emphasize that. And then, as far as donating to the ACLU, I'm a white, male, educated, so incredibly privileged, and it's just in the past few years that I've even started to realize that. And as I do, and obviously in this country, many, many more folks are really waking up to just how awful it is to be oppressed, and the many, many ways in which other people are oppressed. And so I felt a little bit powerless as a white guy in Vermont, but also realizing, well, no, of course I'm not. Any chance I can get, I'm going to try to at least say something. And then also knowing, and I've been learning recently, that it's all well and good to, put something on an album or like put a Black Lives Matter sign out. That's important. It pales in comparison to real and substantial engagement, allyship, listening, financial help. It's one thing to put a sign out, and again, it is important, but there's a whole nother level of really looking hard at our own lives and seeing what could we help with here.
I think that's an important next step that I think, as you say, a lot of people are waking up to, and I hope more people wake up to soon, because that's really where the difference ends up being felt. But yeah, I think it's fantastic that you've decided that 20% of your work should go into these things.
Fortunes for those organizations, I assure you.
This vast trove of wealth that you are soon to be coming upon.
I'm sort of counting the dollars, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm just going to give it all to them. We'll see.
I want to talk a little bit about what's coming up before I let you play your last song. So I see here you've already mentioned that you're playing at the Grateful Get Down. That's happening in Blaine, Pennsylvania. You got a couple of dates coming up as well in July. You want to talk to me about the gigs coming up and kind of where else people can see you?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, July 2nd, Burlington City Arts, right here at City Hall Park, the lunchtime Friday gig that they've been doing. I'm psyched. I played that one a few years ago with my dad, and I believe I'm going to be there solo. I may have bass and drums with me. I'm still putting that together, but either way, I'm looking forward to it. So that's Friday, July 2nd, 12 p.m., right at City Hall Park in Burlington. And then Friday, July 16th, we, except my brother who's going to be away, but we plus more are going to be playing in Bristol, my hometown, on the Green. There's a great Friday music series that's had hundreds and hundreds of people there, and there's a food truck and a little beer tent on the Green and the whole deal. So we're going to be there performing as Scarlet Annie and the Individuals with Annie Voorhees, our lead lady and singer. We'll be doing some of my songs as well, but it'll be more of a full-on dance and funk and cover band kind of a thing.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Is there any other gigs you got coming up that you'd like to give a shout out to?
That is pretty much it for the moment. Yeah, things are going to get a little hectic. I may be moving in a couple of months here, so I've kind of cleared off the schedule for the fall time. But yeah, those ones in July are the ones that I'm looking forward to right now.
Yeah, it makes sense to kind of give yourself that the wiggle room, but it would be great if you could continue playing some gigs, because from what I've seen tonight, it's fantastic, and I would love to see it in a room more crowded than this one, although you do have a fairly decent audience
We
tonight.
got a good crowd here, yeah, more than I expected. It's great.
It's so great to be here and talk with all you people.
Ron's over there saying it's excellent to be here, and he loves seeing all the people. I'm just translating because I don't think anybody can hear you.
It's Cranky Leslie, too.
There's no looping.
That's right.
It's pretty amazing what we can do in this studio. Before I let you finish that last song, if people can't see you live, or even if people can see you live, where can they find your music? Where can they listen to you otherwise?
All over the web. You can search Nate Gusakov on any platform. There aren't any other Nate Gusakovs out there. So Instagram is probably the one that I keep up on the most, but Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, you can stream the album. It's all ready to go. Or good old-fashioned website, nategusakov.com. You can get it all there as well.
I love that website's now become old-fashioned.
Yeah, right?
Well, we got time for one last song, so what you got for us?
Play the last song on the album here on Many Mountains. This is called Dark the Night. really write a prayer for this one. I don't know what to say. I'd say the world's full of shit and edges, some other half-baked cliche. But I do know that the water flows regardless of the light. As bright the blinding day can be, darling, so can dark the night. On, I still was silent, just stumbling on my way. Each time that I said nothing, it got harder to think of what to say. We were two birds in a rainstorm, neither black and neither white, remarking on the songs we heard and the darkness of the night. Well, you've made your peace without me, and I guess I've done the same. I finally found the reasons, Lord knows I'll take the blame. Oh, time flows like a river, sometimes still and sometimes churning wide. I row my little boat along through the darkness of the night.
Nate Gusakov playing us out there with Dark the Night. Thank you so much for coming in.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to Bob for doing sound and for this entire crew of helpers we've got here.
I can assure you the pleasure is all ours. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
You can join us next week. We're going to have Kingdom All Stars in the studio. But for now, this has been 105.9 The Radiator. It's been The Rocket Shop. I've been your host, Tom Proctor, and good night.
Well done, fellas. Well done.
That was great.